Right, you have painting, assembly, packaging, then you have basic, homeowner, and pro. And each one of those has different values. The basic and painting, I'm just going to write them all down. Now, it's possible yours is a little different than mine just because um, it gives you different versions of the same type of question. All right, and then it says, if the manufacturer has 106 hours for painting, 69.7 for assembly, and 46 hours for packaging, how many sets of each? So we're just doing painting. All right, so if we're just doing painting, that is this row right here. So let's say basic, I'm going to call it X. Homeowner, I'm going to call it Y. And pro, I'm going to call it Z. All right, so 1.6 X, 1.8 Y, 2.6 Z equals 106. And then we do it again for assembly. So 0.8X, 1.4Y, 1.7Z. And that one was, assembly was 69.7. And then one last time for packaging. That one was 46. All right, as I'm looking through this, I'm going to solve this by hand because I know not everyone has the calculator, is able to use the 84. So I'm going to solve this by hand, and I've got it recording for those students who want to go back and look. And I am going to eliminate the x's because I think that if I multiply this by -2, I'll be able to cancel those x's. So I'm going to use these two equations here. All right, so if I want to eliminate those x's, then I'm going to multiply that bottom one by -2 so that when I add them together, they're going to cancel. So distributing, that's going to give me, oh my gosh. Distributing is going to give me -1.6 minus 2.8y minus 3.4z and -139.4. All right, so now I can add these together. X cancels. Adding the y's together, we're going to get -1y. And then adding the z's together, we're going to get negative 0.8. And then adding the constants, negative 33.4. All right. So I've eliminated x's on those two equations, so I need to choose another set and eliminate the x's again. So I'm going to do these bottom two. And you can choose any set as long as they're different from the first two. Now I want to eliminate the x's, and I don't know necessarily the least common multiple of zero point 0.8and zero point 0.6, so I'm going to multiply by the opposite side. So I'm going to multiply this one by 0.6, and I'm going to multiply that one by negative 0.8, so that when I distribute, these two values are the same, but have opposite signs, so I can cancel them. So multiplying here, that's going to give me 0.48. And then multiplying the y's, that gives me 0.84. Oops. Multiplying z, that's 1.02. And multiplying the constant. All right, and now I'm going to do with the x's again with the negative 0.8. Negative 0.72 for the y. Negative 0.88z. And negative 36.8 for the constant. X's cancel. And we add everything else together. So this is 0.12y. Zero 0.14z. And 5.02 for the constant. All right, now we put these two together. And I think I'm going to multiply this top one by 0.12 and eliminate the y's, because if I multiply it by that, I'm going to get negative 0.12. All right, Y's cancel. Add everything else together. And then divide. So believe it or not, when you divide this, you get a whole number. It's 23. All right, once we've got that one variable, we start plugging back in. So I'm going to take it and just plug it into this one here and solve for y. So 0.14 times 23. And then take 5.02. You're solving for y at this point. And then we get y equals 15 when we divide. And then we plug it into one of the original ones. So let's say I plug it into, I don't know, just this top one, I guess. It doesn't matter. Okay. And the y was 15. The z was 23. All right. So 1.8 times 15 is 27. 2.6 times 23 is 59.8. Combining your terms, then do 106 minus, and then divide one more time. So x is 12. So all that, remember, if you've got the calculator, this becomes really easy. You can just plug in as a matrix. So manufacturer can produce 12 basic sets, 15 homeowner sets, and 23 pro sets. Okay, so that was fun and a lot of work. But again, if you've got the calculator, this is not a big deal. Is it easy enough to solve without the calculator? Yeah, it's just really cumbersome. There's a lot to it. All right, now in the chats, go ahead and type in your questions from, yes, it's so much work. Um, I'm telling you, use the calculator. If you've got that calculator, use it. Other than that, this is all I got for you. There's not an easy way around it. But in the chat, go ahead and type in your questions from the review. You can look through it yourself and just pick one or two out. There's only 30, and you have 2 hours to do it. The midterm itself, I gave you 150 minutes, so that's 30 minutes more than you have on the review. But so go ahead and take a minute. I want you to look at the review, even if you haven't started it yet. It is due on, actually, I have it due after you take the final, or after you take the midterm, I'm sorry. So he's asking when the midterm review is due, and it's due after you take the midterm. That way it stays open for you to practice on. And you should be looking through that midterm review, finding questions. Whereas this is your studying opportunity. All right, if you're in this class, that means you needed a little bit of extra help with this. All right, so looking through the review, the midterm review, look for one or two that I can do with you. Yeah, I'm not stopping you from writing small. We have a student asking if they can write little on their notes page, and yeah, I'm not stopping you. The only rule I had is that it has to be front side of an 8.5 by 11. So one-sided, um, write what you want on it. I had a student once, no, I get that. I had a student once, he wrote out an example like this one, and I don't know what he did, but he somehow got it on, like on his computer, and he shrank it so that the entire thing fit on his piece of paper, and he still had tons of room for other formulas. All right, so I've got a question on this. Let me go ahead and find that number. Okay, let's see, number 23 from Thou. And let me see, Sarah Dawn, which one that one is real quick. I think it's towards the bottom. Yeah, 21. All right, now I'm going to do 21 first. All right, it says find the length of the leg. We're finding this. So knowing that it's a right triangle, this is Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. All right, so the c is always the hypotenuse. I don't see why not. I've never used a discussion board in a math class before. Let me make a note of that. The only thing I would say is if you take the midterm before someone else, like I'm going to be looking at that discussion board, you shouldn't be discussing anything that's actually on the midterm itself. Um, so they're like cheating. So I will be checking that. Okay. All right. So hypotenuse is always the C. So 11 is the C. And it doesn't matter which one's A or B. It's one of the legs. So we've got A squared plus 8 squared. So 64, 121. Then you want to subtract. And then take the square root. 57 is not a perfect square. And to my knowledge, it can't be divided by any other square. Yeah. So then A, that missing side, X, is just the square root of 57. And then thou I see 23. Let me look at that. Okay. Um, you want everything to be on one level, so you need to multiply by the least common denominator or you multiply by the yeah, least common denominator of all three fractions. And so you want to factor. T squared minus 4 factors into t plus 2, t minus 2. T plus 2 does not factor. No GCF, nothing. T minus 2 also doesn't factor. So you're looking for pairs or triples of the same factor. So pairs or triples, basically anything that's in common between 2 or 3 of the denominators. So you have a pair of the t plus 2's and another pair of the t minus 2's. And then what you would do from here is check for like missing factors. So if there was something that wasn't in common, but I don't have any of that. That's empty space, that's empty space. Like there's nothing in common here. So this is my least common denominator. So you're gonna multiply every single fraction by that least common denominator. And that's up there in the numerator with it. So we're multiply t plus 2, t minus 2. And we concentrate on one fraction at a time. And when you're doing this first fraction, you have to remember that t squared minus 4 is t plus 2, t minus 2. And since you have denominator and numerator, those are going to cancel, leaving just the 9t. Moving on to that second fraction, this time it's just the t plus 2 that cancels, and it leaves the 8 and then this t minus 2. And then on that last fraction, the t minus 2 is the one that cancels. So we'll distribute 8 times t, 8 times negative 2. 1 times t, 1 times 2. Combine your terms. All right, I am going to subtract the t. And then I'm going to add the 16. And then divide by 16. It should be 9 over 8. At least on mine it is. Remember, you guys all get different problems, but yeah, this one's 9 over 8. All right, other questions? All right, x minus 7 over. Let me look at and see what number that is. Okay, so number 10. And then Sarah Dawn, can you go find that number for me so I can look at it? But I'm going to go ahead and answer Melissa's real quick. Let's see. Domain. So I think that one is number 9. There's a couple different versions of that problem, unless it was from a homework assignment. So when it asks for the domain, you want to factor. So across the bottom, you want factor pairs of negative 16 that add to be negative 6. So that's going to be x minus 8 and x plus 2. And we do that so we can see if anything cancels. All right, should have the same binomial on top that you do on bottom for something to cancel. And that's not happening here. All right. So with a rational function like this, both of these factor pairs represent a place on the graph for that rational where you have a vertical asymptote, which means the function is undefined there, it doesn't exist. So to get those values, you set them both equal to 0 and solve. So both of these values, the 8 and the negative 2, represent a place where there's a vertical asymptote, where it's undefined, where the x does not exist. So the domain is all real numbers, but x can't be 8, x can't be negative 2. All right, Laura asked for number 10. So let me look at that. All right. This is not one I'm going to be able to sketch because it's a circle. It's the equation of the circle in standard form. So that's x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals radius squared, where the h and the k represent the center. And of course, r represents the radius. So on my side of things, what I see when I pull this up is that the center is at 5, -2. And then I see that the radius, 1, 2, 3, 4, radius is 4. All right, so 5 is your h, -2 is your k, and then of course you have r is 4. We plug in x minus 5 squared plus y minus a -2 squared equals the radius squared. And about the only thing that we do here is simplify the minus negative to plus positive. And then of course radius squared, 4 squared is 16. All right, and I see we're asking about number 28. Pterodon, is that a less than or equal to? Okay. All right, so the thing with absolute value is that when you take an absolute value of something, it represents a distance. And so I'm saying on this one, we're taking the absolute value of 4x minus 1, and it's supposed to equal some value. Distance is always positive. And so there's no way that when you take the absolute value of something, unless something's happening on the outside, there's no way that when you take the absolute value of something, you're going to get a negative. So this answer does not exist. Absolute value should produce a positive number. All right, anything else? We will likely meet one more time before most of you take the midterm Tuesday's meeting. And so if you didn't find any questions today, you need to find some questions before then because your midterm is next week. You have from Monday the 20th, check that date. Yeah, you have from Monday the 20th through Friday the 24th. You must take it at an TCC testing center. Um, You can have your calculator, you can have your cheat sheet, scratch paper, pencil. There's no extra assignment next week. It's just get your midterm done. All right. So this would be a good time for you to catch up on everything if you haven't. Um, Definitely need to do this midterm review. I know there's been some question about the midterm review not going in as a grade, but I'll check on that later. Um, if I need to, I can manually push it all through, but I wouldn't worry too much about it because you can do it like over and over and over again. I think that's part of the reason the grade's not going through. Um, I think that's everything. Are there any other questions for me before we end the meeting? Yes, it is. The setup and everything is pretty much the same. So I had a question about whether or not the review is similar to the midterm, and it is. It's remarkably similar. Same types of questions. Let me look and see because I don't remember how long it was because I made it a while back, but let me look and see. 30 questions as well, and yeah, incredibly similar. I gave you a little longer to do the midterm than I did the review. So the review you only have an hour or 2 hours, and the midterm I allowed for 2.5 hours. But it does have a little bit of everything. So systems of equations, all those things are all on there. There's one just like number 23 on there. Yeah, there's almost no difference. Yeah, almost no difference in the review and the midterm. Any other questions before we go? Yep, I can do it. Let me find it. Okay, I am gonna share my screen so that you can see it because this is not one I can like copy and paste like at all. Let's see. All right, can everybody see that screen okay? All right. Now, it's asking for f of g of 9. All right, so we start with the inside. We're gonna find g of 9 first. And you might need to adjust like how you see the pictures um, so that you can see my iPad screen. I don't know how that works. If you can select someone, can you select someone? I think you can. Okay, I can get this out of the way. Yeah, if you click like the up and down arrow, you can go until you see my screen, until you see my iPad screen. Why isn't it showing? Okay, I don't know. All right. Um, so we want to find g of 9 first. So we have all the x's here on the left column, and 9 represents an x. So 9 is this bottom row, and I want to find g of 9. Well, g is the right column. So g of 9 is 0. Okay. Now, I'm going to kind of type it in this box. It's not the right answer, but I'm going to type it in this box. Now that we know that g of 9 is 0, we want to find f of 0. Because g of 9 is 0, so we want to find f of 0. Well, 0 on the x column, and then f of that is 6. So f of g of 9 is 6. So let's do one more. We want to find f of 5. So column, there's the 5. F of 5 is 7. So then we want to find g of 7. Right? 7's here. G of 7 is the 4. So g of f of 5 is 4. F of 1. So I'm going to find f of 1 first. And f of 1 is 9. So then you want to find f of 9. Well, f of 9 is 0. So f of 1 is 0. All right, so does that make sense how that one worked? Okay, let me zoom in on yours. Okay, yours is not that much different. Yes, it would be the same with the graph. So let me share. So g of 5, the graph for g is on this right side. I'm going to find g of 5, which is 0. So then I want to find f of 0, which is over here, and that is 1. So f of g of 5 is 1. So you use the graphs to find the y values and then plug them back in. But the table and the graphs, it's the same exact idea. Perfect. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and end this. On Tuesday, you need to have gotten into this review because I know what's on this review and I know what's on the midterm, and you should be having more questions than what you're giving me. And I appreciate you guys so much for those of you who have given me questions to go over because I know um, that if you've got a question, someone else likely has the same one. All right. So please, please, please get into the midterm review before I see you guys again on Tuesday. All right. All right. Y'all have a good night.